Good evening, fans. Tim Kitzrow here, the voice of NBA Jam, and you're listening to the Game Dev Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by CodeWritePlay.com. Whoa, boom shakalaka!
Okay, any questions for me, concerns, anything?
No, not at all. Let's do it.
I like that. All right, then, for lack of any delays, I'd say we're doing pretty well here. You want to get started by introducing yourself, tell listeners what you're working on, what you're doing this month, this week, this year?
Yeah. My name is Jesse Attard. I'm the CEO and owner of Tactic Studios. We're just in the process of finalizing our game Clair de Lune, and it should be out in a few weeks' time. We hope June 14th is the date we're currently targeting.
Nice.
And at this point, we are just dropping the last bit of audio and fixing some of the bugs that we've seen in the game. So not much left to do at this point, other than make sure it works.
Very cool. The game is up on Steam already. So I've had a bit of a look at some of the trailer footage, some gameplay trailers now. You guys have a pretty cool YouTube channel going. I like what you're doing with the channel. How long have you been working on that?
Years ago, I added some content to the channel myself that was focused around, making indie game content as well as programming tips, things like that. But more recently, we've been focusing mostly just promotional stuff for the game. And I guess that's been going on for a few months now.
Nice. It seems to be doing fairly well. The videos seem pretty popular. Explain what players will find with Clair de Lune, your latest game.
Well, it's a story-driven puzzle game, first-person puzzle game, fully 3D, kind of like Portal, I suppose, would be the most obvious comparison, except where Portal, you're generally in this testing environment with puzzles that are contrived as part of the testing facility. In this case, the puzzles are tend to be more real world, naturally occurring puzzles, and things that you would have to overcome. Like there's a locked door, you need to figure out a way to open it. More like a old school adventure game, those kinds of puzzles. On top of that, there is a bunch of platforming. There's a different mechanic to the game. This gameplay mechanic of the gun we have, similar to the Portal gun, we have something called the nano gun, which spawns these cubes that can be pushed away from walls or pulled towards walls, and you can use them to kind of navigate the planet surface that you're on.
And the game looks fantastically polished in these trailers, and to explore some of that, I guess we have to talk a little bit about your professional background. So walk us through that at high level.
Sure, yeah. Well, I've been working with Tactic for 6 years now, I guess 6-7 years. I don't quite recall, somewhere around that line. But prior to that, I worked at Digital Extremes, who make Warframe. I didn't work on Warframe. It was just being developed just as I left, really. And I worked on a Star Trek game, BioShock 2, a little bit of Halo 4, a little bit of The Darkness 2, Homefront, Dark Sector, and a bunch of games as part of Digital Extremes. And yeah, I was a senior level programmer at that company.
Very cool. So what does the team look like at Tactic? I mean, what's the group size? I mean, how's it look?
Well, when we were making Clair de Lune, it was very tiny. On that game, it fluctuated, but there was two constants, myself and the other owner. And then there's been a handful of artists and one animator that helped. So I think we peaked at around 5 people for Clair de Lune. Now we've actually grown quite a bit. There's another project that we've currently lined up that's allowed us to grow a little bit more. So now I think we're about 17 people, but at the time we were about 5.
What I'm looking at is pretty great for 5 people. I mean, that's, you guys are using I hear you're using a custom engine. Is that right?
Yeah. So we actually also wrote our own game engine too. So that's the craziest part of it is, myself and Dave wrote this engine. Dave is my business partner. We're both programmers, and so that was the first thing we did when we started was build the engine. And then once we built the engine, we brought on some artists and animators to help flesh out the game. A bunch like I can animate and do art, and I did all the sound design as well. So in addition to the programming and stuff, I did a lot of those kinds of things. That being said, it's also been in development for a long time. So we started it in 2015. So it's not like even though it's a small team, it also took a while for it to come out.
Did you do a previous game with this engine, or is this the first big project?
Sort of. We had an old game that I made years and years ago, in 2007, called Immortal Empire. And it was a 2D game, like a kind of a XCOM, like a fantasy XCOM game. Pretty cool game, if I may say so, but dated. Obviously, it's like 14 years old now. But it's that was sort of built on the same engine. Yeah, like we wrote this 2D engine for that game, and actually some of the code from there, actually quite a bit of the code from there, is still around in this current incarnation of the engine. So we had a bit of a head start. All like the audio code, networking. Input, mouse, keyboard input, some of the user interface stuff. Actually, a lot of the user interface stuff was already there from that game, so we didn't have to rewrite it for this one. But we did to write entire 3D renderer and all the 3D animation stuff, physics. There was lots more to add in, and the engine's pretty different now.
I think listeners would be very interested to know, what are they building outside your home?
Other houses.
Okay.
yeah. We're just in a zone where it's like just us and like a bunch of dirt, and then there like a million houses being built around us all simultaneously. Yeah.
We kind of went through that in my area too recently, which is fantastic for producing a podcast. If you had any doubts about that, but yeah, we're about halfway through building the houses, and we got in here and they built 12, 13 more. So that's a good time. I'm sorry for you and your family during this time.
It's not bad at all. It doesn't bother me. If I have to do audio editing, I just go into the quietest room in the house. Do a bunch of noise reduction, throw headphones on. And, it's kind of fun. I have kids, and they before we were living in just the suburbs, streets and roads or whatever. Now it's like dirt piles for them to play on. Rusty nails for them to find. So it is fun.
It is fantastic. I have a son, and he loves all of that. He kind of misses the construction, so we have to go find some every once in a while for him to look at. But
yeah. I think my kids are finding it kind of something new. So
yeah. So obviously this game looks fantastic so far. What did you not like about your current engine options? I mean, this is not accusatory in any way, but you decided to go it on your own. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, no, to tell you the truth, the engine options these days are quite good. At the time when we started this, they weren't as good as they are now.
I guess that's true.
At the time, Unreal Engine 3 was kind of the big one out of Epic. They didn't allow source code, and I believe it was 25% of your total revenue is what they took, in addition to any additional fees to release on console, which were not small. Unity also didn't allow source code. They still don't, as far as I'm aware. And they just didn't have enough at the time. So we built the engine, and then right around when we were feel like, okay, the engine's usable, then Unreal Engine 4 came out, and then they announced that Unreal Engine 4 would be free. And we're like, okay, maybe if it had been 3 years later or 4 years later, we would have just used Unreal. We were not anticipating they were going to release all the source code, make it free, given the high price tag they've always had for decades. So, that was a bit of a surprise, a great surprise. It's awesome that other developers are getting access to that really, really great piece of technology. But it's more just a timing thing than anything. And we knew we could do it. We knew we weren't going to we'd done these sorts of things before. So it wasn't like a complete Hail Mary. We just thought, this is going to take us a couple of years. Let's just take the 2 years and do it, and then it'll be ours.
Do you imagine yourself maybe turning this into a product of its own at some point, or?
I don't think so. I can't see us really realistically competing with those larger companies. There's some interesting aspects about the engine that those other engines don't have, but there's also things those engines have that we don't have. hundreds of people working on it and hundreds of millions of dollars driving them. So, and obviously other features. So it's difficult for us to compete. Plus, there's already really good. It's a very good market out there. The tools and options that are available are fantastic. So, if anything, we did anything with the engine, it might be just to release it open source for people to use. Nice. That's something we are chit-chatting about internally to see if we want to do. We might do that, and that would be awesome for people to, if they want a completely free alternative, engine as opposed to the 5% or whatever Unreal or Epic currently charges, be another option. Yeah.
You must have sort of a community rallied around behind. I mean, you've got a decent YouTube following started. You've got a very nice looking game coming up. I mean, you guys must already be in pretty close contact with future players, enthusiasts, things like that. Are you guys hearing from a lot of people right now?
Yeah, I mean, through our PR company, Vicarious, they've connected us to a bunch of people, including yourself. And it's been great so far. We're seeing YouTubers play the game. We're seeing Twitch streamers play the game. We gave them some advanced keys. And that's been really awesome. I mean, it was an early buggy build, so a lot of things didn't totally work. But I was happy that people were even just able to get the game to run.
Yeah, sure.
I just thought it would just be crashes everywhere, and then they were able to play it pretty much all the way through. So that felt good. And it's great to see people playing it finally and hearing their feedback and finding it funny. Like you write a line and then you get a voice actor to deliver the line and you think it's funny, but then you just hope like other people actually think the game is funny too. So
yeah, and I mean you're doing a sort of loosely puzzle based game in the vein of Portal, I guess, but it seems like there's clearly a lot of writing going on, relatively heavy on narrative and story. And, what was this writing experience like for a game like this?
Super fun. Definitely has a ton of writing. It's mainly the relationship between John, the protagonist, who's a father trying to reunite with his daughter, Claire, when they get separated. And it's him kind of bonding with his spaceship AI, whose name is Arturo. And they have pretty different personalities. Arturo's really outgoing and kind of funny, and John's very kind of deadpan and serious and sarcastic. And so they just play off each other. And it's just neat seeing that relationship develop between these two guys. As far as writing is concerned, it came really easily to me. I've written stuff before. Like Immortal Empire I wrote. Compared to that game, it just has walls and walls and walls of text. This game's actually pretty small by comparison, even though there's still thousands and thousands of lines. There's quite a bit of story content in there. It wasn't the same level as like an 80-hour RPG, like the last one I did. That being said, the process is pretty straightforward. I find I just like write some dialogue, kind of whatever's popped in my head, and I go away from it for a while. Then I play through it maybe months later to make sure it doesn't sound stupid, and it usually does. And then I replace all the stupid lines with stuff that's not quite so stupid until it starts sounding good. And then once I can like listen through a cinematic, and I'm like not annoyed by anything, then I'm like, okay, it's good. I'll just leave it now.
Yeah. How long have you had publisher support with what you're doing? I mean, you guys are doing some pretty ambitious stuff. How long has that been a help?
This game does not have a publisher, so not at all. I can say we are working with a publisher on the new game that we're currently looking at, but that's all secret at the moment. Gotcha. Clear Lune does not have a publisher, so we just did it all ourselves. We've worked with we're from Canada, and there are some grants, like government grants, that you can apply for. It's a very competitive program, and if you kind of show like, here, there's a business case for this, then they'll provide a certain amount of financing to help fund a project like this. And so it's partially funded by the Ontario government, but that's the case for a ton of games built out of Canada. Virtually all of them, if not 100% of them. Yeah. It's just an incentive that the government puts through to try and produce Canadian content.
Gotcha. I think my confusion was Vicarious does like marketing services, stuff like that, but then they also have a publishing arm, and I wasn't sure which one you were working with. So they're taking care of your marketing stuff. Is that right?
That's right. So Vicarious is just doing the marketing. They're not publishing the game.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
You're the probably fifth or sixth Canadian developer I've talked to in the last year who is getting help from Canada to do the game. I mean, is it just? I mean, it's great that they offer it. Is it also easy to do? I mean, everybody's doing it now, which is cool.
Is it easy to get the funding, you mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say easy. No, it's very competitive, I would say.
Yeah.
But I'd say if you are making a game in Canada, then you likely have funding behind it, if that makes sense. It's hard to fund it otherwise. And generally, there's also some tax credits they have. The Canadian government, and in our case, the provincial government has been fantastic. I'm pretty sure the United States has comparable things on a state-by-state
Similar
basis.
Yeah, because here I think it is pretty complicated. So
and other countries have it too. So I think Canada's just trying to keep pace with the level of development. Canadian banks too are also less likely to give loans than American banks are. They tend to be a little more willing to take risk in America, whereas here they're quite conservative. Which has its positives and negatives. And so for a business, we look to these other grants to help fund. And it's very competitive. You have to there's quite a lot of people apply for it. It's not just free. You have to also contribute money yourself too. They won't just throw money at you. And then on top of that, you have to have a proven team that knows what they're doing and outcompete all the other people that are looking for the same chunk there. So,
it's still extremely cool that option is there and so available to compete for, which is fair enough, you know. But
it's awesome. I mean, even my kids, they watch cartoons or whatever. At the end of their cartoon during the credits, you can see it's like backed by the Canadian government or backed by the Ontario government or the Quebec government or whatever. Like any of these Canadian shows, I'm not sure if you do you guys have like Paw Patrol and like.
Oh, we do, yeah.
Yeah, so that's Canadian and it's totally funded by the Canadian government, not completely, but like partially.
I didn't realize that. I didn't know Paw Patrol was Canadian. My son, to this day, he loves that. He's only 6, so I mean, he's still very into that.
I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure they're Canadian, or at least a chunk of it. I definitely know a bunch of people that like work on Paw Patrol in Toronto, and any of these like Canadian cartoons that are now seeing a bigger audience because of Netflix and things like that. They're all subsidized, and it's amazing. I love that our government helps fund the arts and aren't stingy about the funding in the sense that they will fund video games, they'll fund television series, they'll fund cartoons, they'll fund broadcasting, novels. Like if you're a novelist, they'll fund. Like it's all kinds of stuff that they will help you produce. So, and it's to their benefit to some extent as well, right? It generates jobs, it helps bolster the economy, it brings companies to the area that otherwise wouldn't have done so. I mean, our company wouldn't exist without it. Now we're employing 17 people, all from this, frankly, fairly tiny investment from them. So that tiny amount of money goes a long way, right?
It seems like it is working to the extent that, like you said, we're starting to see more and more examples of shows, just household names that seem attached to Canada and their funding. I think maybe we're even kind of seeing its own kind of version of Hollywood. We're starting to see a lot of experts in animation and, certainly the game industry has a ton of influential people in like Quebec and, a few of your hotspots you have, just like we have ours down here. It seems like there's a shift that direction of like Canadian influence in all of these mediums, especially in games. We're always very excited, like this is the latest thing out of Montreal or whatever. Well, give it to me, I'm ready.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Ubisoft is a huge one, right? We've had 3 massive companies out of Canada: Electronic Arts, BioWare, and Ubisoft. I mean, Ubisoft originally was in France, but their big studio where they did like Prince of Persia and later Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, and all their big franchises were built out of Montreal in Canada. And same thing with BioWare, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, the old Baldur's Gate series, Knights of the Old Republic. They're all Canadian. And the original Electronic Arts. So Trip Hawkins, who founded that, is Canadian and out in BC. You have a ton of like Relic Entertainment, and it just seems like whenever there's kind of one place that has a big studio like BioWare, EA, Ubisoft, and where we are in London, it's Digital Extremes. They're a bit smaller compared to those other studios, but they've had a huge amount of success with Warframe and in the past Unreal Tournament. When you have that little nexus there, people come in. I worked at DE for a long time, but eventually you want to do something different, right? You start, you get a few enterprising people that have the same mindset. You start a studio, and if you know what you're doing, then you can be successful. So there's quite a few studios in London. It's a small town. I mean, we're 400,000 people, not like a big, metropolis or something like that. And I think there's like 5 pretty good sized game companies in the city here.
And the big studios are smart. I mean, like when I spoke with people from Gearbox in Texas, they were like, "Oh, we, how things are up near Ubisoft in Canada. We opened a small office across the street, and several people who have moved on from there went to this office across the road. Now they've got this great second studio going in wherever they opened it up, and they said, we love working with those guys because they're experts who have been around the industry forever now. Their work blows us away all the time." And it was really kind of a nice story in an industry where you routinely hear, like, we've got 3 studios, they don't get along, nobody likes each other. Like, these guys have been very excited to partner with these, like, long-term industry pros, which has been kind of cool to hear about.
Yeah, I think Montreal also has Eidos, who made Tomb Raider. Obviously another huge franchise now. They're owned by Square Enix. But, same thing. It's like, it's great having, like, if Digital Extremes and our company are both in the same city, it can only benefit both of us, right? Like if someone comes to work for our company, we're much smaller, of course, but and then decides, hey, I've worked with these guys for a while, I want to move on. There's another one right here. So it's easier for us to attract people to our company for that reason. And it's mutually beneficial, right? Someone gets sick of working at DE, they can come work here. Someone gets sick of working with us, they can go work there. And it's a change of pace, right? And things like Ubisoft is just in Toronto now, so 2 hours is not that. We're 2 hours from Toronto, so it's a pretty short drive if you want to work there. And nowadays, everyone's working remote anyhow. So, it's really changed things.
How you got into the industry, did you start sort of at the high level AAA contribution level, or did you do smaller stuff before that, or pretty much go straight to a big studio?
My first job was at Ubisoft Montreal. So
that's...
I wasn't a senior person there. I was a junior programmer, but that would have been 2005.
Gotcha.
That's when I started there. I was doing GameCube, PS2, and the original Xbox. I don't know what you call it anymore. The Xbox, the first one. The
Xbox, yeah.
That one, games. And following that, I did some mobile stuff, like kind of previous to smartphones. Like this is old flip phones, like the Razr flip phone. We did a bunch of games for that, and that was at Capcom. Because I wanted to move back to Ontario, being an Anglophone, and and then DE shortly thereafter. So. Always kind of worked at fairly large companies, I would say, mid-sized to large companies. But it's a nice change of pace to be at doing something smaller now with Tactic.
Yeah.
Although we're getting bigger again.
Good luck with that. You've aged us both now, because I left tech school in 2005 and went into the workforce. And so now people know what that looked like. It was the original Xbox, the flip phones, and you name it. So that's okay. It's been a fun career for both of us, it seems like. Yeah. And are you enjoying the transition? Is the change of pace pleasing to you? Are you a little shell shocked from the whole thing, or what's going on?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's great. Yeah, I love doing it. I mean, on one hand, I love having my own engine. I loved working on DE's engine as well. They also have their own proprietary engine, which is really fun to work on because you have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you can do and add to it. you're not getting like terrified about touching some code because I'm like, oh my god, what if? Because I used to on BioShock was Unreal, right? And so when we worked on BioShock, you're terrified about touching any of the Epic code because if Epic decides to change that code, now you got to merge them, and it's just a big nightmare. So having your own engine, you have 100% flexibility. You can make it do exactly what you want. It's much easier to work with from our standpoint. So that's been great. I also get to do things that I otherwise wouldn't get to do, right? I mean, I did all the sound design for this game. Every sound in there is mine. And that is something I would not be able to do at any other company. They would say, we have a sound designer that does that. And while there's times where that can be, like I'm getting a little tired of just like editing audio and dropping in footsteps and things like that. It's a nice change of pace to be able to do that and do some art, and all the UI screens are all mine too. So it's sometimes nice to step out of the coding box and do some other stuff.
It's true. If you were from a much bigger team on this project, I could have never asked you, like, what was the writing experience like? You would look at me like I was stupid, and it would be the wrong question to ask anyway. But it is cool to have influence over this many aspects of a project and still have it look like Claire de Lune looks. It looks like it's going to be just fantastic quality. And I mean, we're in the last 2 weeks. It's looking good. Are you surprised by any of the feedback in terms of like, this is not what we expected to hear people focused on? Or are you guys scrambling right now? Has development kind of cooled down a little bit? How are these last couple of weeks going?
I can't say that I've heard any feedback that was surprising necessarily. I'm sure it's out there. Some feedback that I wasn't anticipating. It's kind of hard to not anticipate. Some people are going to like it. Some people are not going to like it. It is what it is. But I'd say most of what I have seen from the streamers and watching the Twitch streams and the comments from the users watching the people play it have all been really positive. People seem to like watching it. They like watching the streamer go through and helping them solve the puzzles and things like that. They seem to find it funny and entertaining. The puzzles aren't too difficult. Occasionally someone will see a puzzle and they're like, like, how do I even solve this? And they're getting frustrated. And then about 2 minutes later, they have the answer. And they go, oh, that actually wasn't so bad. Right. Or they'll take maybe 5 minutes to solve a puzzle. And they'll be like, oh my God, that was so difficult.
Yeah.
Like, 5 minutes. I mean, it wasn't really that long. In terms of us scrambling, not really. No, I mean, we don't crunch at the studio. And obviously there's a lot of work still to be done, and we want to make sure the game is as good as it can be before we release, and that requires a lot of hard work. But no, I mean, I can't really sacrifice my home life. I got kids, I'm married, right? I can't just like completely do away with all of that just because we're shipping a game, right? We'll be able to ship it once we're able to, and once it comes out, I'm sure we won't have caught every bug, and we'll listen to the user feedback and fix those things as soon as we can. So
it's encouraging to hear that philosophy on, home and work balance from an indie like yourself, because I talk to a lot of indies and it's always a very different philosophy. Some people have exactly that outlook. And then some people tell me like, I'm not working at a normal, like punch the clock gig, so I can't stop myself from doing this stuff at home. And I get that too. Like, I understand how that would sort of creep in. But just based on my limited experience, I tell people, like, you're either on top of every aspect of your life at once or none of them.
Yeah.
Like, you can't... like,
yeah, no, I can totally relate to that. Certainly that's true to an extent. Because my kids are home, we're currently in a lockdown, so my kids aren't even at school, right? So when that happens, it's not like my hours are 9 to 5 every day or anything like that. I've got to take time to go help them with school. But then, once they're in bed and asleep, then I'll come and boot the computer back up again and do some more work at night. But not every night or whatever. So the hours are strange, but I'd say that's largely because of the pandemic more so than it will be my preference. I'd rather work just kind of 9 to 5, 9 to 6, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the lockdown experience been like there? I've heard it's pretty aggressive.
It's not crazy. No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, maybe compared to certain states, but the schools are closed, and that's for us is the big thing.
Yeah.
all the retail stores are closed, malls are closed. You can't get stuff from them. But I have to say, other than the schools being closed, for me personally, it's not been crazy. It's obviously affected the business. We've had to delay the game because I haven't had the time to focus on it as much as I would have liked due to the pandemic. So there's been that we've had to contend with. Delays in the game can cause other problems. You're not launching at the time period that you want to launch at, and that can be problematic if you launch in the middle of summer or like in the middle of a sale or something. Your game just gets completely lost, or if like Cyberpunk is coming out and you launch on the same day, it's bad news. But other than those delays due to COVID, kids are at home. That's the big thing that disrupts your life, and you can't go into stores, but you can order stuff from stores. And then you just drive there and they put it in your car and you come back home, you get the same thing anyhow. You still have to go in the store. It's not that big of a deal, I would say. I think the people who are feeling it more are people who are in that industry. If you're in like entertainment industry, from like, you're a band that plays gigs or something, or you're, music promoter or a restaurant, those ones are the ones that are feeling the pain right now, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right. Here, we certainly spent some time almost in the exact same situation. Everything's shut down. Don't check. It's shut down. Right now, there are places around town I could go where you would have no idea anything's going on, which is strange. Because we spent that time like you spent. It really got into my head a little bit. Like, I felt like we're in here. There's nothing out there. And like, it's okay. It's just a much different life, and you sort of get used to that. And now we can go to, certain stores aren't even really paying attention to the masks or anything. It's like, what? Yeah. It feels like going back in time, except that something's much different now, and it's not great. So,
well, your vaccine rollout's been really positive, though, right? I mean, isn't over like half the entire state vaccinated now?
At this point, I think I heard that same number. I think we're over halfway now. I'm in a state where our governor doesn't really believe in any of this.
Okay. So, Is it harder for you to get a vaccine if were you to want one? Yeah.
It's been a more disappointing place to be. I finally managed to get my second dose a few weeks ago at this point, so I'm finally in the clear. But it was really touch and go there for a while, and I joked on Twitter like the fastest way for me to get the vaccine would be to move out of state, and it was true for a while. Like, I could have sold the house, bought a new house, got my new driver's license, got the first dose. It would have all been faster, but I know many Canadians that are driving to the States to get their vaccine, and
typically people who have dual citizenship or something like that, like if they are Canadian American, then they will go get theirs in the States. Ours has been really slow by comparison. I think we're just kind of getting it going now. I think we're at around 3% of our population, and we're a much smaller country. So I think you've got 150 million people fully vaccinated. I think we're at around 3%, which is worth 33 million. So, that's like a few 100,000.
Yeah.
So it's not very much smaller, but I think we have quite a large number that have their first dose now. So, and we're having to delay our doses because we don't have enough of the vaccine. So I think the second doses are coming out in about 4 to 5 months. So
it's wild how we're still pretty deep in this thing. Like, we're really not we're not out of it yet. So.
But the States, I mean, you guys, your case count is dropping like mad.
It's really finally dropping aggressively, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the vaccines are having an effect, and you should be opening up, I would think, really soon. And it's encouraging for us, right? Because when we see how things are going so well down there, I just think like, well, as soon as we get our population having those same numbers, I'm sure the same thing will happen to us. I mean, we had a kind of a third wave come through here that just didn't hit the States at all. You guys were fine, and ours, it was our worst wave yet, because we're seeing all those variants come through, right? But they seem to have completely passed over the States because of these vaccines. So it's encouraging to see. I think it's causing other people prompting them to go get vaccinated, and I'm just praying that it'll have the same effect, and maybe by the next school year, my kids will be back in class. It'd be great.
Oh yeah, I hope so. We're all very hopeful about next school year for the kids. We all know it's not the same experience at all. We totally get it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm looking forward to not only that, but like you said, it's a different work experience. I'm gonna have to look at here around this house. We were in a very unique position before this ever started. I was freelancing and contracting and stuff from home. My wife was, she's a physician. She was doing virtual care already. So she's doing telemedicine and stuff. So when this started, we went, okay, we're in an okay position to keep working and keep doing everything. And we were very upbeat and everything. And I still feel like this experience emotionally kicked everyone's ass. Like we had no hope of feeling the same from day to day. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe what we're seeing outside. But
Yeah.
if it's encouraging to you, yes, it's a totally different experience now as the cases drop. My wife's job is easier. She had months where she didn't get one night off. 12-hour shifts overnight every night, could not take a night off, and she said we don't even think about it anymore. This whole team, we do everything we can for everyone. It's an emergent, like pressing patients crashing left and right and everything just all night. We don't even think about it between those 12 hours on and off.
Yeah.
Now we're able to take the occasional family night off again. There's light at the end of the tunnel. So hang in there. It does start to get better in a hurry once the vaccine really starts to roll out. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly how it seems. And yeah, I think we're fortunate both that things are starting to roll out in Canada now, and that our neighbors, it's also been rolled out well in advance there, and just no other bordering countries. So we should be good.
Yeah. So sort of getting back to it, you've got some momentum here with the studio strengthening a little bit. You're in position for what looks like it's going to be a successful release here. I can't see any reason this won't be a successful game release for you. I think this is going to be a very popular title. Where do you go from here? Do you do more development work on this for later content? Think about the next game. What's in store?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I really hope that you're right and that people, resonates with people and they like the game. That's what we're aiming for, of course. For the forthcoming future, I mean, I have a million game ideas. I mean, we're in no shortage of those. So it would be a matter of kind of assessing the financial success of the game. If it warrants it, then we'll port the game to console. We're already approved to port it to Xbox and PlayStation, so we're able to do that. It's just a matter of, because we wrote our own engine, it's not as straightforward for us to port it. We do have to port the engine over. Big disadvantage of having your own engine.
Yeah.
you have to do that work manually. So, but we can totally do it. And if it, like I said, the finances warrant it, we'll absolutely do that. So that's probably on deck. And then beyond that, it would be new games.
Very cool.
Sorry, you're hearing some screaming over there. It's just my kids.
Just a tad, and mine was just carrying on just a moment ago. So that's in terms of podcasting, the pandemic has had a few benefits, which is everyone's expectations have come way down on audio quality. Really, I mean, like, it's no longer any surprise when someone barges into the room, the son comes in and waves at I can show you several shows where my son, like, can I talk to that guy? Like, yeah, come on over. It's no big deal. So that's actually been totally great and is certainly no issue for me.
I've been debating getting a new microphone. I've had this like cheap $5 like Logitech stand mic since like 2010 or something. And I'm sure I sound like I'm talking over the telephone or something. And I see everyone I speak to has these like amazing high quality mics and they sound like radio broadcasters. I'm like, I should get myself one of those. Yeah.
Logitech makes pretty good stuff. Like, even their older stuff is pretty good. You sound decent. I think you'll be satisfied if you listen back. Like, there's certainly nothing wrong with your audio quality.
Okay.
What I tell people is like the holy trinity is like Logitech, and then Blue, like the Yeti mics. Those are always very popular and they're pretty affordable. And then up to the studio quality, or like a lot of these very expensive mic manufacturers make specialty USB podcast mics and stuff now. Like, there's a whole logical progression, but Logitech is a good place to be for right now. So you sound fine to me.
$5 was well spent.
I like that chair. What kind of chair is that?
Oh, it's an Anda seat.
Nice.
Yeah,
That looks
yeah.
wonderful.
I had a like years ago. I bought this used Herman Miller like ergonomic special. I'm like, if I'm going to be sitting at home when I started the company, I'm like, I might as well sit in something comfortable so I don't like start having back problems or whatever. So I bought this chair that was expensive, and it broke on me. Like, yeah, it was great for a little while until it broke, and then when it broke, I'm like, ugh. So those chairs are so expensive. I was actually able to sell that chair and buy this one and have like $100 left over. the broken chair, right? So
That's
I sold
pretty
the
great.
broken one, and someone was like, "I can repair this." Was happy to pay for it, and then bought this one. I had to say I'm preferring this one. It's got the back, it's got the lumbar, got the neck thing here. It's pretty comfortable. Yeah.
My pandemic purchase was one of the chairs. It's not this one, but upstairs in my wife's. I bought a nice chair for my wife's office. That's how crazy the lockdown has been. So I could go in there and relax and talk to her and stuff. But it's one of the ones where the footrest comes out of the bottom.
Oh, that's cool.
And it leans like all the way back.
Yeah.
So that I could lay down. Oh, it's been fantastic. She is completely sick of me up there. And
yeah, I think this one does go all the way back if I wanted to, but I've never done that before. Yeah, I just keep it upright.
The big takeaway today is treat yourself on the office chairs. I think everybody should not hesitate.
Yeah, there's a few things that are worth spending your money on. The thing that I'm sitting in for like at least 8 hours a day, yeah, it's worth spending a little bit of money on. They're not that expensive, right? It's not like this was $1,000 or it's a few hundred. So, and it lasts for years. So, yeah.
So in terms of gaming, what does someone in your position with your experience, I mean, like how do you spend your gaming time? Do you get to spend gaming time these days?
Currently, I'm not doing quite as much just because of COVID, basically. Any time that I'm losing throughout the day, I'm trying to make up in the evening to try and get the game out. But up until the most recent lockdown, I was still definitely playing games all the time. I play all kinds of stuff. What did I play recently? Ghost of Tsushima I've been playing a bit. Last of Us 2. What was the other one? The Jedi Dark Souls one. Fallen Order?
Yeah, Fallen Order. Mm-hmm.
Played a bit of that. I replayed all the Souls games recently in Sekiro. I had played them and then played them a second time, and I was like, I just want to see if are these hard still? Or they're actually quite a lot easier when you play through them. You kind of know what to expect. They weren't so bad. Also, I played Baldur's Gate 3, the early access. Been doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've recently played Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. I don't know. I play a good like 30, 40 games a year. So
you like story and a challenge is what I'm picking up here.
Yeah, and I like non-challenging games too. But and my daughter loves games as well, so I play games with her all the time. So she's got a Nintendo Switch, and so we're playing like all the Mario games together, Donkey Kong, Overcooked, so other puzzle games too, like Baba Is You and whatever else. I don't know. I try to make it an effort to play and beat most games that come out. So
good for you.
I play maybe 500 or so, beaten about 500 games. So that's somewhere around there.
It's I'm always encouraged when I hear somebody this deep into projects saying like there is a recent game I've played. You know what I mean? Like it hasn't been 6 months since I've been able to touch the controller because we've all been guilty of getting pretty deep into it. And some designers don't like to just play games as much, and I get that too. And that doesn't really detract from their projects, I don't think. But it's nice to hear you're getting to do some.
I love playing games, and I feel like I have to. So that's a good works well that I'm doing things that I feel like I have to. But yeah, especially like if you're making a puzzle game, I feel like I have to play all the other puzzle games out there and see what they've done. Right? I don't want to duplicate things other people have done, and that's the same for any other game that we make. Right? If we're making a shooter, I'm going to play a bunch of shooters. If I'm making a real-time strategy, I'm going to play a bunch of real-time strategy games. Right? Otherwise, you're going to make the same mistakes, and the game won't be as good. So. And I love doing it, so it works out.
So being this heavy a gamer, what influences have sort of touched this project outside the gaming world? I mean, what other kind of books, movies, just anything that you're into?
Yeah, you know what? That's funny. people ask me that a lot, and I can't say that I'm necessarily drawing upon too much media, even games. I mean, to tell you the truth, we're trying to differentiate ourselves from Portal more so than copy it, right? So that people don't feel it's a clone, and it's not. It's pretty different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess it's not like I like watched a movie and like, oh, that movie was awesome. I'm inspired to make something similar to it. I feel like many of these ideas are ideas I've had from years ago that I have this like list of around 120 games that I feel like I have to make before I die. I'm sure I'm going to get through like 5 of them if I'm lucky. Even one will be lucky. Yeah. So I'm going to pick them very carefully. But yeah, I just usually I'll like have like a dream, or I'll just kind of think like, I think this would be a cool idea for a game that hasn't been done before. And so I guess the original idea for this game was something, it was right when my daughter was born, and she was like trying to get up on the couch. And so she had actually pulled all of the couch cushions off to like make a little like step, and then was able to climb up the steps and get onto the couch. Yeah. And I'm like, there's a game here. Right. And that was the origin of the cube in the game. I thought you can like spawn a cube to like get up to a higher level, and then we added all this other stuff to make it more interesting. But that's where that initially came from.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know.
Art imitating life. I like
it. Yeah.
I get it. Like, parenting is such a unique experience because obviously we all spend time in childhood, and we have interesting experiences that would probably serve us well later in life. But to observe it, like you're sort of more focused on your kids than you were focused on yourself at that time. Way more, yeah. You're also responsible for that person's safety, of course. It's a whole thing. But but it's fun to sort of see that and go, this does make me think, or this does bring up philosophical questions or inspiration of some kind. It's actually it's interesting in ways nobody could have really prepared me for. I don't know if you find that as well.
I had the same experience. Yeah, it's wild to see. Being a programmer, we write AIs to write the game we're working on. Deals with a lot of artificial intelligence stuff because you're talking to this AI. And so I think about how like an AI would be written if we were trying to like replicate human behavior, for instance, through programming. And then when I see my kids and you see like kind of how they learn things, it's like that's exactly how I would have programmed it. To do if I were making a program to learn something, like they're trying to like reach a door and they're just kind of randomly going and they're missing it and eventually they get it, and it's like I'm gonna try pulling it this way, that doesn't work, get it, I'm gonna try this, that doesn't work, and then eventually they're kind of like and once they get it, they're sort of like they figured this like mechanism to like repeat it. They just get better and better and better until they're able to do it. And it's like that with everything, like walking, eating, going to the bathroom, opening doors, like putting things in their mouth, just anything that they learn to do when they're babies. It's this like trial and error with positive reinforcement. And I'm like, that's what AIs do.
Yeah. And the other side of that is we as designers are trying to put together these levels in our homes for them that they cannot beat all the time. Like, I'm trying to make sure there is a boundary between you and this electrical outlet, and that you can't find your way into the attic.
Yeah.
So
or like we store knives on like this low shelf. Like maybe we should put those up high. Things like that.
We're taking away this loot. You can't have it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How old's your son?
He's 6 now, and we just built this house, so we've lived in a variety of environments with him, which is probably why it's fresh on my mind. We went from a smaller house to a small apartment while this place was built, and now we've had a couple of years in the new place, so it all still feels fresh, but this is most of what he remembers at this point. So. Oh,
that's fun. Yeah. 6 is a great age. Does he play games?
He does. We're big racing fans around here, so he plays a lot of stuff like any racing game with an open world, preferably where some D-bag online can't harass him, in like a monster truck and try to run him off the road and stuff, which I've seen a few times now. But right now we're playing Burnout Paradise Remastered, which we both really like, actually. So
my one daughter was watching me play Hearthstone. And then she was like, I want to play. I'm like, okay. And so I gave her my deck that was already kind of pretty good deck. And she's just sort of putting cards up and doing whatever. anyhow, so she beat this person in Hearthstone, and I starts getting messages on screen like, starts beating all this like horrible stuff, and I'm like, so I just like replied back. I'm like, you were playing my 7-year-old daughter at Hearthstone, so maybe don't send that stuff.
Yeah, I have also recently had to open up a message from a complete stranger directed toward my child, which is what it brings up a lot of important points about parenting, is like very carefully selecting the games in terms of what the online communication actually is and what's available. So I've got, messages from strangers go to a special folder, the whole thing. It's on full lock. Yep, here he is.
Oh, there we go.
You want to say hi, buddy?
Hi.
Perfectly well timed. Hello.
My name's William.
Hello, William. I'm Jesse.
We're wrapping up, buddy. You want to sit there and wait?
Yeah, I'll sit.
Okay, thanks, pal. So
awesome.
Yeah, we get messages from strangers, which is funny, and it's really another interesting thing watching that next generation come up and discover the games, and us having to turn into the people who are like, no, turn it off. You've had enough. It's very funny.
Yeah, it's super fun. I get a great kick out of it. If she sees me making games and stuff, and she'll come in and ask like, how do you do this and how do you do that? And she's like, I want to make games when I'm older. It's so fun. And so it's really awesome to see it. Yeah.
Are you going to discourage her from getting into your line of work, or are you going to welcome it?
Not at all. I welcome it for sure. I think for me, it's been incredibly positive.
Nice. I
really don't have anything negative to say. Yeah, it's just been super great. It's a great creative outlet. It's a great technical outlet. There was a time where if you were an artist, it was kind of hard to even find a job, right?
Yeah.
For a while there, right? Yeah. Now artists are in demand, like tremendously in demand, through the skills I've learned through making games, it's like I feel like I could translate these skills to many other industries too. Would that be something I wanted to do? So no, I think it's a great industry to be in. I really can't recommend it enough.
And it seems to me that we're finally in a time where other industries are a lot more receptive to people who worked in games and have those game-related development skills. I mean, they'll pick up those coders, they'll pick up those artists. I think there's increasing credibility given to the writers and stuff. And obviously there are problems in the industry and there are things that need to be corrected, but it's becoming... There's a lot of potential for good that's developing as well, I think.
I think you'll start seeing another generation of developers and business owners, right? You had a lot of business owners coming out of the 80s and 90s where you had a lot of success purely because you were there, right? Mm-hmm. The competition was ultra low. If you had a computer and knew how to program, right, you could make a game that was pretty low quality and still make a ton of money. Because there just wasn't very many games. It's completely different now, right? Now the competition is crazy high. And I think to attract people and to be able to make games, it has to be at a certain level. You have to have a certain level of work-life balance. And I think you're going to get, a younger generation of people coming through developing studios that have a different mindset. So a lot of those negative things you might hear from other studios, I don't think you'll see, continuing into the future.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's my prediction anyhow. Yeah,
it sounds good. I think I'm with you. So as we kind of wrap things up, tell players what they should check out, where they can find you online, anything you want to direct them toward.
Sure. Yeah. They should check out Clear to Lune, which is on Steam and Epic Games Store. So whatever your platform of choice is, you can wish list it there, and that'll let us know that you want to buy it. And you'll get a little email when the game comes out, and it'll say, buy the game. Other than that, you can follow the company on Twitter, just at Tactic Studios, or on Instagram if you kind of want to see the development process. There's some interviews with the voice actors and stuff like that if you're really hardcore into it.
Very cool. Well, Jesse, this has been perfect. Thanks for coming on, and we will look forward to seeing Claire de Lune here in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks so much for inviting me. It was really great to speak with you.
And I'll go corral my son. So have a good one.
All right. Thanks so much.